if you get into discussion with an anti-Trinitarian, most likely this passage, it's going to be probably one of the first passages that you're going to be hit with. In 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 28. Now, when all things are made subject to him, meaning Christ, then the Son himself will also be subject to him, i.e. the Father, who put all things under him, that God may be all in all. I mean, this is one of the greatest verses they use to show you. It's so clear. You can read it. There it is. Jesus can't be God because he's submitting to the Father. And the whole concept is he's going to submit to the Father so that God can be all in all. So what do we do with this? Well, we're going to dig into this. And actually, we're going to take the entire time today to look at what this is actually saying and to understand things. And before we get going, I want to begin with a disclaimer, with a warning. And the warning is this. Peter has something to say in a second epistle at the end, in chapter 3. And he talks about the wisdom that God has given to the Apostle Paul. It's amazing. In its prolific wisdom. This is such profound wisdom. But Peter's concerned because the things that Paul writes about, they're very lofty. They're so deeply complex and spiritual at times. Peter says that they're hard to understand, which the untaught and the unstable twist to their own destruction. And so he says, beware. Beware of that. So anytime you're going to delve into Paul's epistles, we should be taking heed to Peter's warning. You know, as we approach this, we have to approach this with good biblical exegesis. We have to be responsible. And that means when we look at a passage, we don't get into what I would call an isolational analysis. This is a grave error that so many people make and so many false doctrines are birthed from. When you take a particular passage, i.e., 1 Corinthians 15:28, and you isolate it, and you don't allow the rest of Scripture to speak, you begin with the immediate context. If necessary, you broaden and you get into the historical context. And then you know what? You step back, you understand what's the whole chapter about. You step back further and say, what's the whole trajectory of the book? And then you step back even further than that and say, hey, what does it say from Genesis to Revelation? Because here's what I can tell you. For you to walk away with the correct interpretation, you have to be harmonious with the rest of the word. If you come out with something new and foreign in Scripture that is actually combating other Scriptures, you have a problem. You know, I look at the Bible and our interpretation of it, that relationship is like a musician to his instrument. A musician, a guitarist. You know, I used to play guitar many, many years ago, and if I had one string out of tune, it drove me bonkers. I always had to have my guitar tuned perfectly. I couldn't handle it. And if I play a G chord and there was only one string that wasn't in tune, the whole thing is ruined. And so it is with the Bible and theology and doctrine and interpretation. I want to have a little fun with you guys today. And I want to begin today with a little exercise. I want to show you some passages. And this is just to provoke some thought so you can appreciate what I'm saying. And so in John chapter 5, we read this, verse 31. If I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true. Very simple statement. Very simple statement. But it's interesting, this is where you get into that isolational analysis. I could get in trouble here if I don't let anything else speak. It gets really interesting when you go 3 chapters down. We read this. In chapter 8, verse 14, Yeshua answered and said to them, even if I bear witness of myself, my witness is true. He literally just said in 531, if he bears witness of himself, it's not true. I go 3 chapters later, he tells me even if he does bear witness, oh, now it's true. Let me show you another one. In John 8:15, you judge according to the flesh. Oh, I judge no one. In fact, on the heels of this, I could take you to Luke chapter 12. And in Luke chapter 12, there's a man who comes to Yeshua and he says, tell my brother to split the inheritance with me. Tell him to do this. And Yeshua's response is, man, who made me a judge over you? You know, I could read that, and then I can go over here and say, you know what? I judge no one. I could start creating my doctrine if I'm not letting anything else speak. You see how problematic this can be? Because, again, jumping back to John chapter 5, for the Father judges no one, but has committed all judgment to the Son. Here he says he judges no one. But now we're telling you all judgment. He judges everything. Let me take it a step further. John 8:51. Most assuredly I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never see death. Now, take that isolational analysis approach. Don't let anything else speak, and you're going to discover your theology is really going to have some problems really quick. Yeshua's, this is very easy to understand. If you don't keep his word, you die. How simple is that? So my analysis of that, my logical conclusion is, okay, so the people that are keeping his word are those who are alive. But if we get a guy like Wes, and, God forbid, but sometime in the future, Wes passes away, and I said, well, that's proof. Wes wasn't a believer. He died. You see how ridiculous this is? Do you see what happens? And what's funny is you think I'm being extreme here. This is exactly how Yeshua's audience understood what he said. Moving on to the next verse, verse 52. Then the Jews said to Yeshua, now we know that you have a demon. Abraham is dead, and we know he's saved, and the prophets. And you say, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never taste death. See, they heard him. I'm not saying they understood him. You know what I love about Yeshua? He drove the rabbis insane. He drove them totally nuts. Look he says one thing, and then he says something else over here. Sounds exact opposite of what he said. How do you grab onto that? There's no way to do that without the Spirit of God, without being grounded, steadfast in the Word. John 11, it's not until we get here that we read this. Yeshua said to Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. Isn't that helpful? But if I didn't have that, if I wasn't going out, if I didn't read Revelation, which talks about a second death, then I really wouldn't understand the terms that Yeshua was speaking of. He's speaking in very deep spiritual terms.
Hey there, this is Mike at Corner Fringe Ministries. Thanks for watching our video. If you liked the video or it encouraged you, do us a favor. Hit the like button. Don't forget to hit the share. And if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button. Now, if you want to watch the rest of this video, hit the button here. And if you want to watch the rest of this series, you can check it out here. And don't forget, you can download the Corner Fringe Ministries app today on any of your Play stores. Thanks for joining us at Corner Fringe Ministries.